Hello, I'm Juliet. Thanks for having me at Decompress. So I'm from New Zealand. I live in the capital, known as Wellington. So I work for a web developing company called Silver Stripe. So I'm an artist. I studied fine arts in Auckland. I finished that in 2014. And my art practice explores the intersections between history, culture, and technology. So I often like to create kind of like strange, unique moments for people, and often finding the internet as a starting place. So I investigate themes such as the collective unconscious, popular culture, and the real and the imaginary. So I'm drawn to unconventional and conventional mythologies, such as painting, drawing, and collage, and animation and coding. So when I make a work, I purposely make it ambiguous. I think of it as creating my own new type of culture and society of people in a particular time. So I'm also a web developer at Silver Stripe, where I've been working for about 2.5 years. I'm particularly passionate about JavaScript and front end. So when I finished my fine arts degree, I went on to a boot camp style of coding called Dev Academy in Wellington. So a question I often get asked is, how did I become a web developer when I studied fine arts? So there's a lot of parallels for me, but one important thing is bringing animation and bringing it to life. I really enjoy coding and bringing life into things and bringing them alive. People often think programming isn't intuitive, and art is some frantic expression of some primal urge. But to me, these aren't both. Oh, the video's not going. The art is a frantic expression of some primal urge, but these aren't true. These are just stereotypes. Hopefully my animation plays. I wanted to talk about art and programming and how it is creative, first of all. So it's quite a big topic to talk in 15 minutes. So I'm just going to give you a few of my perceptions of observations in the workplace and my personal experience. So one thing is that we're all makers and doers. And so a question I want to ask is, what does it mean to be creative? I think creativity is often pushed to the side and seen secondary. But it's a fundamental part of society, and technology is a very fundamental part of that. So it's solving problems in a new way and just challenging perspectives. It means facing fears and breaking routines of doing something different. It means looking at a problem in more than one way. There's 1,000 different routes to get to that end solution. Oh, God. Sorry. It means searching for inspiration in the even most mundane places. It means being curious and asking those questions. So programming is creative. Here's 3 examples of the iterators. We've got the for of, and the for each. So they all get to the same solution, but there's different ways you can get to that end. So I believe that's creative programming. So creativity is used, and I believe if you're doing that, you're making a piece of artwork in itself. And we're all having fun, right? As Einstein said, creativity is intelligence having fun. So I wanted to talk about the whys second of all. So there are also quite a few of these. So I wanted to speak about the most important to me. So the first one is creative flow, and the second one is using your brain in different ways strengthens it. So creative flow, it means you're making meaningful work and you're fully present in the moment. it means you're losing track of time and you're fully engaged in the activity. And neurochemicals augment the creative process. Then you can take in more information and it amplifies learning. And this is actually one of the most addictive kind of states of being, which creates purpose and happiness. It's known as an ecstasy type of state, and happiness is contagious. We all want to be around, be happy. So the second one, using your brain in different ways strengthens it. So your brain is a pattern organizing machine, and the stronger brain is creative and cognitively flexible and able to reason efficiently. So learning new skills breaks pattern routine and adds to the brain's abilities, which forces the brain to continually restructure its filing system and prevents thought ruts. So this can also fight burnout and reduce stress. So Leonardo da Vinci, we're probably all familiar with him. He was a painter, sculptor, engineer, architect, mathematician, and inventor. He uses well-balanced logic and imagination, and so he was using his brain obviously in different ways. So in my experience, creative people such as artists are very logical thinkers. Their logic is just not based on the status quo. They establish their logic that makes sense to them, the thinker, as a thinker, and the audience. So it's about pushing yourself a little each time. So it's having challenge and skill, and so that is that type of creative flow. So this was like the first JavaScript animation I taught myself, and I thought of it being quite daunting and tricky when I first seen like, all the animations on the internet, but after doing some digging, it was more simple than I realized. So it's about taking a step forward, but taking one that isn't too big, and having a goal that is reachable. So now I can take those learnings and apply them further to my other animations that I do now. So it's just having a goal that is reachable. So I've spoken about the whys, a couple whys, and now I just wanted to speak about the how. So how can we apply these things? So for me, it's questioning the base premises. So you're repurposing, combining, and always trying to improve what you're making. You may have heard of the quote, good artists copy and great artists steal, from Picasso. So for example, for a painter, a museum is a reference library of techniques, and a developer, Google, is a reference library for techniques. So you may not be the first to try something, but you did it so well, everyone thinks of you when they see that style. So it's really reusing what's out there and making it into your own thing. For me, it's being inspired and influenced, and then creating something new. So you can see I do that as an artist and programmer. I'm influenced by Hieronymus Bosch, who was around in the 1400s to the 1500s. His work is on the left and mine's on the right. So you can see I've repurposed some elements and combined things, but it's come out as my own original artwork. So everything feeds into each other. I start from writing doodles or scratch, just getting things out of my head, and then searching the internet. I've just combined two images there, and then pushed it further into drawing, and then pushed it further into digital and SVG illustration. And then I've pushed it further, and then made my own little hunter factory, because of these people I make, creatures I make, are called little hunters. So there's kind of like a interesting angle on it. So I'm combining my imagination and my logic, and just starting to challenge myself over time. So I've built this language up over time. So for me, being creative, there's going to be probably no ever satisfaction or no end to exploring new ideas. So I'm always searching for something new and to learn. Thanks. So I've got this simple click event. Just a simple nav, a toggle. So I wanted to speak about how I've applied the same type of thinking, repurposing and improving it as I would with imagery, but just with code. So I'm using the simple JavaScript concept, and I'm just always trying to find a new way to improve it. So here's one example. And then I've also tried to write it in, as a class constructor, more object-oriented way. And then also in Vue and React. And so these all do the same things, but I've always just been trying to ask the whys and the hows and how that would apply to what I'm trying to get on the front end. So also I wanted to speak about the process. So another part, there's quite a few bits to this, but one that I find quite important is starting with a blank canvas. So to construct a good program, you want to be able to see the consequences in your head, not just do it line by line of the code. You have to be able to totally visualize it. So it's having that abstract thinking and be able to translate those abstract design patterns and visualizing and seeing the whole picture. So you can see I do that with painting and a canvas, and also my Sublime, my editor. So whether it's actually just having a blank piece of paper, canvas, or your editor, you're building something up from nothing. Ooh. Sorry. I clicked on it. So it's about learning by doing and that gradual refinement. So artists enjoy asking the why and the how of the world. Artists can learn, as I am, to ask the computer the same types of questions. So great pieces of art can take weeks, months, years to make, and so can developing software is likewise. So it's not being afraid to fail and having that persistence. So also, many artists are developers. So you may have heard of Sarah Drasner, who is big on SVG animation. She originally came from an art background. She was doing illustration and drawing. She wrote the book about SVG animations. If you haven't heard of her, I highly recommend her to look up. And Zach Lieberman, he comes from a fine arts background also, and he was really into drawing in his fine arts degree, and now he does drawing with software. Hopefully that loads. So for me, also going forward, I'm just been really looking more into SVG animation lately, the Green Sock library. If you haven't heard of it, I recommend to look it up. So I'm always going to be transferring my drawing into the digital, and I hope this video plays. So that's just something, it's a work in progress, so I'm just playing around at the moment. But also I was inspired by this Studio Smack Plus, this 3D world. So now I'm looking at 3JS and A-Frame, and there's so many creative libraries out there and frameworks just to play around with and be influenced, and great documentation. So for me, I want to create my worlds, that drawing stuff that I was showing you earlier, and be inspired by this, because I find it quite mesmerizing. So I just want to say thank you for having me here. And so I believe combining art and technology together challenges the digital world and also how we perceive the art and the artist, which I find is really important to break down those barriers and stereotypes. We define art as an expression of application of human creative skill and imagination. Then to me that means every meaningful piece of software is an expression of somebody's idea or angle or at solving the problem. So I believe programmers can be artists or are artists, and artists can be programmers. If you're interested further in my work, you can follow me on Twitter or look me up on Instagram. Thank you.